But the ministry of death, he calls it the ministry of death. The Mosaic ministry is now the ministry of death. In the other letter, it was the Hagar who was Sinai in Arabia. Now it's the ministry of death in letters cut into stone. So we know that for him, the ministry of death is letters cut into stone. I mean, can you mistake what he's speaking about? Well, you'd have to be pretty naive to escape what he's speaking about. Now, if you're a Christian, which most of us in this room are, maybe you can understand why this could never go down in Palestine, and why the people of the Judaic background in Palestine were so horrified and angry at this. It's like, you know, as I told you, go into a mosque in Mecca and say some things about Islam like that. You know, this prophet is actually a charlatan, and what he's teaching you is actually a ministry of death, but what I'm bringing is a ministry of life. If the Crystal Cathedral represented that, and I was the teacher and I went into there, I started talking like this, they'd beat the living daylights out of me. They'd throw me out. I don't know what they would do to me. So, but the people who are of the supporters and reading this, well, that's our Paul. We're on his side. It's a sort of solidarity teamwork thing here. So yeah, we're rooting for Paul because we're the heirs of Paul. But in academic times, you're rooting for fairness. So you have to be fair to evaluate what happened in Palestine in this period. And in all fairness, in reading this, would it not surprise you that this would anger a lot of people in Palestine if they read such a thing? They don't read it today. But if I took this to the rabbinical court in Jerusalem and said that what you guys represent is the ministry of death, letters cut into stone, the very thing that the Jews take out of their tabernacles every week and kiss and touch and do all these things, and have someone come along, he may be right. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying the effect. And then you say, but it lacks elemental respect of other people's feelings. And that's what the problem is here. He just tramples on things. And because the people who became the inheritors of this wasn't an issue, they were more interested in the doctrine than who he was trampling on, they never really appreciated that. But just you put yourself into that, and if you think I'm wrong, look at the next line. But if the ministry of death and letters cut and so was brought into being with glory, and here it is, so the children of Israel were not able to look in the face of Moses because of the shining glory of his face. So we know it's the Mosaic law he's talking about. We don't have to go any further. I knew it before he got there. I don't even know if that is a proper translation. But he goes further. He gets so carried away. I don't like to review Paul because I take too much time on it. Because to me, Paul is the key to going back and doing the scripture. And if you don't know Paul, then you can't understand what the issues are of the scripture. We have Jesus sitting with prostitutes and sinners. Now, did Jesus sit with prostitutes? We love that. Yeah, great. I mean, as if there's hundreds of thousands of prostitutes running around Palestine at the time. But the fact of and then I just did this, the footnotes for my book on the issue of publicans, tax collectors, and sinners. And publicans were tax collectors. So what I show in my book is that these are symbolic. And that is part of the polemic. That what Jesus is shown as doing there is accepting Herodian tax collectors in Palestine, because the people who were the tax collectors in that time were the Herodians. So he is accepting the Herodian regime, and then at one point in the Gospel it says, and the tax collectors and the prostitutes go into heaven before you, he says to his apostles. No, I don't accept that. That's an historical statement. That's a polemical statement written by people in support of the Herodian monarchy who were looked upon as no better than prostitutes. And you say, how do you know they were looked upon as no better than prostitutes? Because I read my Josephus. And if you'll look at Josephus, you'll see, first of all, Herodias you know about. She is no better than a prostitute as far as even the New Testament portrays her. Then there's her daughter, Salome. But then there's the next generation of her brother's children, Miriam, Drusilla, and Bernice. Drusilla divorces 2 husbands and ultimately ends up marrying the Roman governor who killed more revolutionaries in Palestine, as Josephus at one point puts it, that I think he says that there was no space for the crosses, nor wood to construct them. And so we'll get Felix and Drusilla, in the book of Acts, but we're not covering that in this class. And the book of Acts calls Drusilla a Jewess. Doesn't mention that she's an Herodian princess. In fact, she's not a Jewess, because Josephus deliberately said she deserted the Jewish religion. He says that. Now, the last one is Bernice. She's the last one. She also appears in Acts on the hand of her brother Agrippa II, listens to Paul lecture. That's at the point that Paul is portrayed as saying, or they say to Paul, a little more Paul and we're Christians. Bernice was accused of incest with her brother in the Roman style, whether she did or not, or I don't know. In the run-up to the war against Rome, she and Agrippa II were stoned by the revolutionaries, thrown out of Jerusalem, barred as an immoral pair. Their palaces were burnt in the uprising. She ended up as the mistress of Titus, the destroyer of the temple, and Titus took her to Rome like Caesar took Cleopatra as his consul. So, I mean, don't you think that in Palestine she would have been looked upon as no better than a prostitute? These are the prostitutes the New Testament is talking about. We don't have all these brothels all around Palestine that we've got. These are the people who were looked at. That is my position. One last point on that I just put in this footnote yesterday, which is why it's on my mind, is that at one point one of the Gospels says about John. Jesus is talking. And you know that the prostitutes and the tax collectors, they accepted John, but you denied John. And so on and so forth. I forget where that is. It's in the Gospel of Matthew, and I think it's in the Gospel. He's talking about to his own apostles at that point. I think that's when he says, so the prostitutes and the tax collectors go into the heaven before you. The prostitutes and the tax collectors accepted John? And the apostles and the man on the street in Palestine denied John? Well, that is exactly the opposite of the presentation of Josephus that I've just given you. So, now very few people will stand up and feel they have the authority to say, that is not historical. And that's where we come to historical Jesus, of course. How do we reconstruct the historical Jesus? Or do we have to? All right, let's just finish this and then I'll go back to where we were. Okay, so the children of Israel were not able to look at the face of Moses, that's in Exodus, because of the shining glory, because of the light. What happened when Moses went into the tent of meeting after the Ten Commandments were revealed according to the book of Exodus? His face was irradiated, you recall? He was glowing. So what did he do?